No one at Ledger is here because they want to build the future bank.
The only physical thing in the world that bridges the gap between the physical world and digital world is your ledger.
Calling Pascal and saying, dude, I think your company's going to be huge. We're trying to get from 10 million people in secure self-custody to 100 million. And if anybody has a better idea, we're all ears.
Whether we release Stax 1 year ago or release Stax now and Flex, etc., these are still by far the best products in the industry and will be the best products in the industry for the next 2 years.
Most Def said, the plan hard work, results good living.
Stax comes to market, it's been 3 years. Between the moment we sit down, we say, okay, we need Flex, and it hits the market, it's been 9 months.
You could say this year is the worst year for cybercrime. Every year for the rest of your life, and be correct. You don't need to check your facts on it. You'll be right. We know that. Unless you are seeing and verifying what it is you're signing on a secure screen, you can't be secure. Blind signing is like unsafe sex. It's fun even until it's not. If not self-custody, why crypto?
Could move to 2034, where would Ledger be?
Whenever you have a new technology, you have a gold rush, you have a bubble, the bubble pops, and then you get 30 years of sustained growth.
You need protection, you need security. Only if you have security, you can be free.
Hello, and welcome to the Ledger Podcast. I'm Mo, your host, and we are back with a new format of the podcast, recording from a brand new Ledger studio, which is located in Ledger's 106 headquarters in Paris. Joining me today to celebrate Ledger's 10-year anniversary are Pascal Gauthier, Ledger's CEO, and Ian Rogers, Ledger's Chief Experience Officer. Let's dive in. Pascal, Ian, welcome to the Ledger studio.
Hey Mo, what's happening?
I mean, it's great. It's great to have you both here. It's the first podcast actually after the few formats. So
this is the first time I've sat in a chair in this room.
So let's set the table. Like, we're recording from our brand new studio at the 106 headquarters. Pascal, tell us a little bit about the story of the building and how it came to be Ledger's headquarters. I know you were pretty much involved in the project from the beginning.
Yeah. Look, so as a company evolves, like you evolve in terms of, how many people are working at the company is very simple. And real estate is always something that you have to sort of worry about, and what kind of real estate, for what moment, for what team. Ledger starts in 2014 with just 10 people. So the team at the time was working in the basement of La Maison du Bitcoin, coin house in Paris. And you just needed 15 seats. And today we have more than 600 employees. We reached 900 employees at some point back in 21, 22, I think. And so the scalability of your real estate and where you bring people, is something that you always have in mind as a CEO. And then there was the event of 21, working from home and the COVID pandemic. And for me, it was obvious that we were going to go back to the office for a few reasons, very practical reasons, actually. I thought about like the younger people working at the company, and I thought that for them it would be horrible to work from home forever, because actually, you go to work because you want to be part of a team, you want that team spirit, you want to meet with people. Your colleagues at some point become your friends, and that's how you build a life, right? It's different for older people, maybe, like, your life is settled, you have your family, you have your kids, etc. So you're sort of less excited to go to the office. But nevertheless, whether you're young or you're old, like if you want to be part of something, to have a place to meet is very important. And finally, Ledger, we do hardware. And the hardware you have to touch, and we build an experience. So you need to be close to people physically to be able to engage and see on the screen, what's going to be the experience, what's going to be the software experience around the hardware, etc. To design the product together. Something very important is not too dissimilar to what Apple did in Cupertino, where they designed that big building. Like, you have to be somewhere to build that hardware together. And back in 21, I didn't believe the working from home forever. And so we decided to do that transaction and to get Saint-Systemple, which is 10,000 meters square in the heart of Paris, in a Marais, and to make it a fantastic building, not only our headquarters, but also like a beacon for the crypto industry. And not just in Paris, not just in Europe, but for everywhere in the world. But I want to turn to Ian because Ian and I, thought about this together, and especially about like the nature of the building and why we wanted the headquarters the way we designed it. And I think Ian can do a much better job than I would to describe what this building is really about.
Yeah, well, and first of all, I agree with you on the going back to work. When COVID hit in 2020, I was at LVMH, and LVMH actually we went back to work very quickly. It's like part of the culture there, and I think it's and I understand. I have a very particular experience with remote work. When we did Winamp back in the late 90s, we were completely remote. And then many times after, you have, I actually spent a lot of time managing teams between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and even two offices, you end up kind of factionalizing. Like, remember the San Francisco people like, wow, those LA guys don't get it. And you're like, wait, what? Come on, we're all on the same team. But and what I saw over time is that they're full remote is definitely possible, but partial remote is incredibly difficult. Those people on the outside, like, good luck with good luck with mobility. When you're that one woman in Montana, doing your job from there, right? So, I think for us, being in Paris and having a place to gather, it's a really special place, and I've been working here for 9 years now, and it's totally different than working in Silicon Valley, right? You're not talking about, for somebody who's I understand completely why someone doesn't want to commute from San Francisco to Cupertino, right? That's a very different thing. I came here on my skateboard today, right, through Paris, in one of the coolest parts of town, and with and definitely the coolest building in here, this neighborhood, partly because it's the tallest building in the Marais. So you have this just incredible view from this building. But what Pascal was alluding to is making this a place that's not just for us, but really for the whole community. I mean, so much of what we are doing in the world of digital assets is teaching people, onboarding, bringing new people in, to the space, to Ledger, to various blockchains, digital art. There's so much to learn coming into the space. Ledger Academy, which Mo is in charge of, is incredibly successful because people have questions. They turn to things like Google search for those questions, and they end up on ledger.com. And this is the physical instantiation of that. I mean, we really want this to be a place where someone could walk in off the street and buy a ledger and get something special that they couldn't get in the town where they live, and of course also talk to us if you have questions. We have our customer care team answers them all day. Online. They could easily be answering those for people walking the building as well. But even more importantly, really having this be a hub for the whole community. So we have a couple of events over the next couple of days, but if you look at what's going to go on the rest of the year, hackathons, meetups, a viewing party for the Satoshi documentary. I don't know. There's really so much that can and will happen here, whether it's community events like a morning run, or a hackathon like this. What we're trying to build overall is a community of communities, and it means a lot to us that we get to play that role, and in such a special place. I mean, again, I'm pretty happy to be in Paris, and there's a different thing. I've been in LA, I've been in San Francisco, and this is a really different thing. And the office, or Saint Six Temple, where the Ledger offices are, represents that. I think one final note on that is I think ultimately it's about ambition and expression of ambition. Ledger is a global company. We are not a small French crypto company. We actually are a global company who, people rely on us for a very large percentage of the total crypto market cap. So that's we take that seriously. And growing from where we are today into a much larger company is our ambition. And, this building is an expression of that ambition.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also happening at a pivotal moment for the history of the company. It's Ledger's 10-year anniversary. Having a building like this, I've been bringing people into the building for the past 3 months, and it's true that everyone feels that it's such an exciting thing for Paris and for them as well, because they see what they could do with Ledger inside such building. But, let us take back a few steps and talk about how you two met and, how that, relationship unfolded into becoming what it is today is, basically building the future vision of Ledger. And just before we do that, Pascal, you are involved with the story of Ledger since almost the beginning as a seed investor. Maybe tell us about the first time you heard about Ledger and what was that light bulb moment where you're like, okay, that's an interesting project, because back then, crypto wasn't necessarily a thing. So tell us a little bit about this, and then we'll get into the story of how you two met and everything that unfolded afterwards.
So look, at the time he was 14, and so back then there weren't, to start with, many crypto projects. Yeah. So just to meet with one was was interesting, and I had decided for myself to invest time and money into sort of Bitcoin and the space that would be built around Bitcoin. And I did my own company. It's called Kaiko. It works really well today. It's actually a data provider, one of the top data providers, also arguably a category leader in its space. Almost Sobiran is now the CEO. But when I built Kaiko, again, it was 2014. Took over in 2017. And in 2014, I was 99% sure that I would crash my company. I mean, this is usually what happened with startups anyways. And quite frankly, it is not a miracle that Kaiko is still alive, but it's a good achievement. Like, all the competitors that we had with Kaiko between 14 and 17 are pretty much all dead. I think now we have a new set of competitors, but, to be resilient in this market has been extremely difficult. And so because I was almost certain to fail, and I knew nothing about anything, I didn't know anything about finance, I didn't know anything about crypto, I'm not a developer, etc. So I thought, okay, I will also invest in other companies to associate myself with other teams and try to, understand the space. And, investing money is a way to get those meetings and to get closer to people that otherwise you wouldn't get close to because you have no business dealings with them. And so for me, the two gaps at the time, there were many other gaps, but the two gaps that I saw and where I thought it was important was data and security. I don't think you have a financial market without data, so that was an obvious one. And security also to me was an obvious one because I tried to play with Bitcoin right away, and I was just like, okay, where do I put my private keys? It was one of the big questions.
What was it like back then? Where were private keys being put?
Well, first I started with Zappo, which was Vences Cesares. That's how I got into Bitcoin. Vences pitched me. I bought Bitcoins from Zappo, basically. I kept them with Zappo for a while, but then he was in custody. And I thought, okay. So then I went to blockchain.com, and I was just like, wow, like I'm going to lose that for sure. Like, that's...
was it paper wallet?
Yeah, no, it was blockchain.com. The way it exists today was like a software wallet, but I don't know, like it felt like, I don't know, I would lose something because you still had that onboarding issue of the 24 words, etc. It didn't seem, for some reason, it didn't seem like secure enough. And, for some reason I say at the time, because now I know why it's not secure enough, but at the time I didn't know, but I got that feeling. And then I met with the team at Ledger, and they pitched me that, sort of chip and pin technology that we would adapt to Bitcoin and hardware wallet. And for me, obviously biased because chip and pin is like a French invention, but I was always told that this is the most secure way of protecting secrets. And so to me, it made sense. I was like, okay, well, and what also made sense is that the fact that suddenly you would have something physical that you could hold where your private keys would be. So, by extension, you say, well, my Bitcoins are on my ledger. Your Bitcoins are not on your ledger. They're on the blockchain. Your private key to control your address is on your ledger, but by proxy, you say, my Bitcoin is on my ledger. And so the fact that you would have it physically, I thought was super interesting. And actually, when you think about it like that, if you look at the world of crypto today, the only physical thing in the world that bridges the gap between the physical world and digital world is your ledger.
Well, it's another reason it makes sense for us to have this building.
Yeah.
We are all about the physical instantiation of crypto.
Yeah. And so that's arguably you could say, okay, my iPhone too, but I would say, okay, but that's not a secure option. So the only way to do it really securely and to bridge that gap between physical and digital is your ledger. So that's interesting. And so so in the end, that's why I invested in Ledger. And also those guys were super knowledgeable. So I knew that I would learn with them everything that I know today. I owe a lot to Ledger and the founding team to know everything that I know today, and to be, maybe now like a little dangerous when I talk about crypto, when honestly I had no clue before. And it took me a time to really understand the game. Like, I invested in 2014. I have to say that I was comfortable taking the CEO job when it was given to me by the founding team and the board only in 2019. Before that, I was not comfortable. I didn't know enough. I wasn't, I needed to put like 5 years of hard work in order to be in a comfortable position to say, okay, now I know how to do this.
Yeah, and Ian, you came to Paris in 2015, if I'm not
Yeah, in
mistaken.
2015.
Joined LVMH
So the first,
back then.
the first time I'd heard about Bitcoin was through Parker Brooks, our friend Parker Brooks, back in 2009. But I really thought, okay, I actually my background is digital music, so having lived through Napster, Nutella, LimeWire, BearShare, Kazaa, I thought, I was like, okay, well, this technology threatens state sovereignty, and while they can't shut down the technology, they can put out the companies who deal in it out of business. That was sort of my hot take, back in 2009, 2010. But by 2014, I was like, wait, it's actually getting, sufficient scale for the kind of the game theory to be in. I still didn't own any crypto, but what I had done, the first thing I did in crypto was to buy the O'Reilly book, the Building Bitcoin book, because I'm a geek and I love O'Reilly books. And I think O'Reilly books are a great way to get into anything. So I actually started there. So when I moved here to Paris, working for LVMH, I met a lot of people, and most of them were pretty boring, frankly. There are a lot of people who kind of want to meet you when you're the new guy in town. They all want something from you. And I met Pascal over a dinner, and we had really nothing at all to do with crypto. I just thought he was far more interesting than anyone I'd met since I got to Paris. It was a former colleague at Yahoo who put us together, and he was a good matchmaker. It turned out, and we just became friends. Pascal helped me with my crypto journey, and I was able to ask all the dumb questions. He told me he had just invested in this young company called Ledger, and I was like, well, why do we need special hardware? Isn't this all just going to be on our phones eventually? I had a chance to, and not only meet Pascal, but to meet Eric Larchevêque, to meet Nico Baca, and Pascal has a restaurant here in Paris. We spent a lot of nights there, Pascal and I, we both like the snow. So we spent a lot of time, skiing and snowboarding together. But it was 2017 and really 2018 where I got conviction on Ledger, because I saw everything that happened, with the ICO bubble. And I actually, sold my cost basis at the top because it felt like .com madness to me. I was like, I don't know. I just know that this is crazy, and I want to be in a position, I want to stop looking at the goddamn chart, and I want to not care anymore. Well, it turned out to be a great move because then I was objective. I wasn't like pumping my own bags. I was just sort of like, what is this really? And where I came away from that was calling Pascal and saying, dude, I think your company's going to be huge. And he was like, okay, well, why do you finally, after, 4 years of being my friend, or
these are 6 years of conversation.
3 years of this is 3 years in, 3 years in 2018.
Okay.
Why do you finally kind of get the joke? And I said, well, because Ledger is this low beta on crypto. There are a lot of narratives and a lot of communities in the world of crypto. Pascal and I both believe deeply in the Bitcoin narrative, but the ICO bubble taught us that there were going to be many other narratives. And what I remembered was, I'm old. I lived through, I started building on the internet in 1990. And I remember the late 90s when, Microsoft was trying to kill Netscape and AOL bought Netscape, and you had Cisco just sitting on the side going, we're good. There's going to be more internet tomorrow. We're good. Whoever wins that battle over there. And I realized that Ledger had that same position, where there's going to be a lot of battles of why crypto, who brings in people into crypto, what's the application, et cetera. But at the end of the day, if not self-custody, why crypto? And if self-custody, then security. And it's not even just self-custody. right? Like if crypto, then custody. If you have permissionless money, someone has to have custody of the permissionless money. So whether it's a trusted custodian or secure self-custody, and those are the two businesses that Ledger is in, right? Secure custody on the enterprise side and secure custody for individuals. There's only two options for storing your crypto. There is trusted custodian, like name 5, okay. And then there is secure self-custody. Everything else is super dangerous. You can't have an untrusted custodian, and you can't have unsecure or insecure self-custody. So to me, I looked at Ledger and said, wait a minute, those are the two worlds you play in. Whether it's somebody trusting the custody of their coins to someone else, security matters a hell of a lot. How much does the average, custodian user know about the security of their custodian? Like, I can promise you the FTX customers knew exactly zero, and we found out later. And Pascal tried to convince Sam that security matters in the Bahamas once. But I think that you in any case, if crypto, then enterprise security or consumer security is paramount. It's not optional. So that was the realization I had in 2018. But then it was 2020, and then it kind of ties together another thread here because our good friend Tony Fadell and I spent a lot of time in 2020. Our families were pod families, if people know what that means. And we just worked ourselves up. We were like, okay, well, wait a minute. You got $2 trillion in stimulus in the U.S., $1 trillion in Europe. The technology's here. This goes, and we were right. About a cycle for sure. And for me, that was when I came to Pascal. I remember that summer coming to you and said, because we've been talking for 2 years about it. And I came and was like, all right, I'm ready. I've been 5 years at LVMH. I see what's going to go on, and I like to be on the frontier. So that's how. It was
a good timing actually, because we have been discussing this for a while, and there was an opportunity to join in 2018, which would have been wrong because it was too early, and we went through a reorganization cycle, et cetera, et cetera. And also, things happen for a good reason. Like, in 18 or before 21, there wasn't enough room for someone like Ian to deliver his full potential because we're still in the trenches. Like, we had to build some of the building blocks that Ledger didn't really have in order to get then in 21 in a position where now Ian could come, help the company with many things, but including the storytelling around the company, raising the big round that we raised in 21 with Ian. That was 400 million plus that we announced in June 21. So Ian joined us in January. In June we announced this. So we did the fundraise sort of together, and so it was pretty.
It was pretty fun, actually.
Fun and fast now that we think about it.
It was like 16 hours a day of sitting on Zoom calls, talking to people around the world. But we got pretty good at it. It was a great trial by fire for me because it was sort of like, telling the story. And then it was like, okay, time to go build the story.
But get this, it was difficult though, because even though, Ian is really good at telling stories, I'm not too bad. We have a very good duo. It was very hard to convince people because they still didn't see why a piece of hardware would become anything and why finally not everything in the phone, etc. I mean, that question. And so when FTX happened in 22, people suddenly, it was like the aha moment for a lot of people to say, okay, that's why. If you even FTX, that seemed to be that was the darling of the industry where top investors had invested, nothing could go wrong. And suddenly you realize, well, you can't really trust your coins with FTX. So, who can you trust your coins with? And by the way, if not self-custody, again, why crypto? And suddenly it hit people. But still to date, Ledger is evolving a lot, and we just launched a few things the keyring protocol and passkey, etc. So, cryptographic security. So now we're not moving away from cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is at the heart of what we do, but now Ledger is much more of a security device, and for your everyday cyber security, protecting your access to your websites and protecting your data, et cetera, et cetera. And so now people start to see the bigger vision that we've been pitching for years now. But it's hard to see if it's not there. People understand and believe what they see, not so much what you tell them, which is okay. You have to actually deliver on your vision in order for the vision to become true, and to people to see it. But we've been doing this. I've been doing this now for 5 years as CEO, and with Ian since 21. And only now we're starting to see actually what Ian and I were pitching at the beginning of 21. Almost at the end of 24. So it took us some years to go from where we were to where we are. And again, Ian made a clear impact because he started in 21. 18 would have been too soon. 23 would have been too late. So timing is everything.
The company's changed so much in the past, 4 years. And I want to take like even a couple of steps back to talk about like the building blocks of that change. So we're talking about 2020, 2021. We only had the Nano S, the Nano X, and Ledger Live was, just kind of in its first stepping stones. Today, Ledger is as much a hardware company as it's a software company.
Or the other way around. Yeah, software as it is hardware.
Yeah,
I think that really is the probably. It's part of the evolution. It's part of the evolution that we did pitch, in 21, and it's really come true. I think if you look back at 21, where the Nano X was kind of our top line product, and now we have Stax and Flex that are above that with big, beautiful, secure screens. So trying to make a big improvement in the user experience and really doing it. I mean, when people touch the device and see the screen, it's kind of hard to go back to that small screen. But also services inside of Ledger Live was pretty nascent at the time. Like when I joined, there was one buy integration, and that was really
that was it.
Yeah, and it didn't. It took us even months just to be able to buy in the U.S. Like I don't even think that happened in 21. I don't think that happened until 22.
And we're still working on it. I mean, that buy, sell, swap product is something that is, a forever investment for the company just to make it better.
Yeah. So you have the ability to buy, to swap, to earn yield through staking. We have a credit card that's super successful, and that's just pointing out the differences between when I started in 21 and today. Also, the only place, basically, apart from a few very small resellers that you could buy a ledger in early 21, was ledger.com. And today, we've got great partnerships with Best Buy in the US and MediaMarkt in Germany and JB Hi-Fi in Australia and Boulanger here in France and Virgin in the Middle East, and great distributors in India, in Southeast Asia, et cetera. So that it's something. That's what I was thinking as Pascal was talking a moment ago, is like, these things take a long time. I mean, this year is Bitcoin's year because it's 15 years. Ledger is 10 years old. Pascal's been CEO for 5. We closed that Series C 4 years ago, and like Pascal said, a lot of that vision is just coming to the fore. Building hardware is really difficult, and if you haven't, please go watch our Road to Stax video, because it's no matter what you think about Ledger or about crypto, it's a great story about the hard thing about hard things and hardware.
Hardware is hard.
Hardware is hard.
But the sad story in this is, when I joined Ledger, I was 38, and now I'm 48. That's the sad part for me.
Yeah.
But look, what we're doing at Ledger is next level in terms of complexity. I mean, before Ledger, I did a company called Criteo, which we listed in NASDAQ in 2013 for $2 to $3 billion. Had I think he still has 2,500 employees today. He's doing billions in revenue, etc. So it's everywhere in the world. So it was it was the fastest growing company in Europe, I think, for a long time in tech. So it was an amazing achievement. It was software only, and so for me to go for software, and I've done software only, all my working life, and to go to hardware was, well, first an accident. It was just why not? Security, chip and pin, etc. It made sense, early stage, etc. But now to be the CEO of a hardware company, and not just hardware, because you need to have the hardware, the operating system, and the software. And you have 3 layers of technology that very few companies actually master. I mean, stop thinking about crypto, but think about like tech in this world. Like how many companies have hardware, operating system, and software? You have Microsoft, you have Apple, Google is trying, and now think about like how many companies have operating systems? Again, you have Apple, you have Google, you have Microsoft, and Linux, but Linux is not a company, so you have basically 3 companies in the world with an operating system. It's crazy to think about this. And so right now, what we have is the most secure operating system in the world to interact with crypto. So it's actually something that's going to be very important in the future. I always say that the market is not behind us. Like whatever happened in the past 10 years is nothing compared to what's going to happen in the next 10 years. And Ledger is ideally positioned to capture our market share because we are category leader in what we do, and what we do is very difficult to build. And the difference you ask, like what's the difference since I'm CEO, before, after, etc. And what I'm going to say is like no disrespect to the past, but you go from being a startup to be a grown-up. You go from being like a small project that is really a test to being an industrial company with industrial partners and the ability to deliver millions of products to millions of consumers all around the planet, etc. I mean, we always talk about technology, but you can think also at Ledger from an operational standpoint. Our ability to deliver products everywhere on the planet in every country is actually amazing. Like, to have a website where you can order from everywhere in the world is amazing. We pay our taxes everywhere in the world. I mean, the operational layer that is supporting Ledger as a business is crazy difficult. And I say it because I've built several companies myself. I've invested in a bunch of companies. I've been at the board of a lot of companies. Like I've never seen a company that is as complex as Ledger in terms of everything that we need to do and everything that we need to master in order to be in business. If you're bad at marketing and communication, you're not in business. If you're bad at shipping your products, you're not in business. If you're bad at building your products, you're not in business. If you don't have the good software components, you're not in business. I mean, all of these things have to work in combination in order to have a good business, which is what makes Ledger super hard. And I think what we've done in the past 5 years is to really execute against this, because the idea was always the same from the beginning, but the execution is extremely hard. And to execute against that and to be able to put a team that is a world-class team in order to execute on that challenge, I think first is my job. And I think, I'm sort of happy with the job that I've done. Like, just in this room, like, I'm not even saying it, like, people always compliment me on, sort of my recruitment for Ian. Is like, how could you recruit Ian? I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, we have the same vision and we like working together. So, it didn't feel to me that it was particularly difficult to hire Ian just because we wanted to work together and we believed in the same vision and we worked together. Like, people always like, people always see the fact that someone works for someone. I don't see the word like this. People work with other people. Like, nobody in this room has to be here. Like, we could do many other things. We only here because we want to be here and we want to, participate in the same thing, and we want to work together. So Ian, Mo, Seb, Ariel. I mean, we have a very strong team. And again, I'm not saying it myself. It's only the feedback that I'm getting from the market. And I get all feedback, especially on the team. Like, when the team is bad, like, I get that feedback too. And so that helps me make decisions. But when the team is good, I also get the feedback. So this is what we've done. I think this is what was very hard.
I want to try to tie that point together with the operating system point, because to me, it was a really important one in joining and thinking about the vision that I believe in. First of all, Ledger, like you said, you've got this incredible, business which actually has a flywheel effect, right, where you sell hardware and you have software and services that go with that, and you're building a complete ecosystem and experience. And that was why you gave me the title Chief Experience Officer, was because you're trying to put that full experience together. But I remember Nico Baca saying to me when we were standing in your restaurant having a drink.
Nico Baca is the technical founder of the company.
Yeah, we were standing in your restaurant one night having a drink. And he pointed out to me that Ledger is the only development environment on top of those smart card technology on the planet. And for me, as sort of I'm a technologist who works from fundamentals, like what's actually different? Where is the actual moat? I think this is something that's really underappreciated still about Ledger. And to Pascal's point about there being so much more road to go, to me, it's that. I mean, look, you could say this year is the worst year for cybercrime every year for the rest of your life and be correct. You don't need to check your facts on it. You'll be right. We know that, right? Security becomes more and more, security, not only security, but also privacy becomes more and more and more important in our lives. You know, I think if you follow kind of Balaji talking about this movement from state to network, you know, as that happens, security and privacy become, you know, more important to humanity and you know, humanities who care about freedom than ever before. And that for me was, wait a minute, here's this fundamental thing. First of all, there are dozens of billions of smart cards on the planet already. You know, you've got a few of them in your pocket, one's in your passport, they're in all the credit cards that you have, and not a single one of them can you update the operating system on, can you install an arbitrary app on, you know, and we all need them. Right. So every time you do something secure with your phone, it's a joke. You know it's a joke. Oh, I've got to approve this credit card transaction. Like, oh, I've got to order a taxi cab in Paris. Now, oh, they're going to send a notification and I'm going to use my watch to open it. And then, come on, we know, first of all, like, that's just a hoop to jump through. It's like, it's as, you know, it's security theater, not security. And a device like Ledger will make all things more secure. So sure, crypto is an incredible use case, but as Pascal was saying earlier with the security key app, which does 2FA and passkeys, with what Charles announced on stage last week at Permissionless, with Ledger Sync, where, I mean, this is gigantic. We've always said that Web 1.0 was log in with your username and password. Web 2.0 is log in with Facebook, log in with Google, log in with iCloud, log in with Twitter. In other words, who owns you and bye-bye to your privacy. And the promise of this technology is that I can be in control of my data. And, you know, so that to me, what was a big part, and like Pascal said, and the reason that I've sort of thrown my opportunity costs in with Pascal and the rest of the team at Ledger is that long-term promise of the necessity of, you know, we will have digital ownership in our digital lives. Security and security is a bigger and bigger problem every year. Lack of privacy. Privacy is something we need to steal. It's already been stolen from us and we need to steal back, right? No one at Ledger is here because they want to build the future bank. Right. There's something bigger in the water here, and we feel it. And that's, I think it's important to mention, because obviously we want to make this a great business, right? Because we want to return value to our investors, and all of our employees are shareholders, you know, so we want to push the business and create shareholder value, but we could be other places doing that. And we are here because it's idealistic for us. Yeah.
And a pivotal moment in the kind of realization of that future is the change of form factor of the product and making it more accessible, right? So, you know, December of 2022, you announced, Ledger Stax on stage with Tony Fadell. It was brought to market in 2024. A lot of people might ask why it took so long. Could you give an answer to the people that have, this question?
Of course. I mean, first of all, I think the way to think about what we're doing at Ledger, Pascal mentioned earlier, you can either look forward or you can look back, right? We look forward, right? So there are, we've sold 7 million devices. Lots of people tell me they have more than one Ledger. So that's not 7 million people, that's for sure.
But it's not one either. I mean, it's the average is 1.2 per user. So we have a solid, very solid user base.
Absolutely. But still, it's a very small number, right? 7 million is a small number relative to, 8 billion people on planet Earth, 5.3 billion people on the internet, 5 billion people on social media, 2.3 billion people in gaming, 400-ish million people who have ever touched crypto, how many, probably 100 million or less, who are serious about crypto. And then let's be super generous and say there are 10 million in secure self-custody, probably being very generous, but how many of those have good operational security, right? So the point is that there's far more opportunity ahead of us than behind us, as Pascal said earlier. So I think the right way to frame absolutely everything Ledger does is to say, how do you get from 10 million people in secure self-custody to 100 million people, right? So one of those ways is definitely devices that are easier to use and more integrated into the services that you want to use. And that's what we have between Ledger and Ledger Live. But to do that, you have to have a good interface. The Ledger Nano is an amazing product. People think it's a USB stick. It's not actually. It's a secure element in there that is doing the key generation and the cryptographic operations, et cetera. But pushing OK with two thumbs is not a mainstream user experience, right? So having a secure touchscreen was really the next step there. But you could also frame Ledger Recover through the same lens. Why Ledger Recover? Are we going to get 100 million people in crypto if it's like, write down your 24 words and stress a whole bunch about it and have no backup? We hear the horror stories every day that doesn't work for people, right? Like they're two pin attempts in, they don't know where the recovery phrase is, and we have no answer for them, right? Because our product is designed so that we don't have access. So again, frame everything we do through the lens of we're trying to get from 10 million people in secure self-custody to 100 million. And if anybody has a better idea, we're all ears, right? But going from 10 million to 2 million seems to be like a lot of people's MO, and it's not ours. In terms of like alienated people, et cetera. With Stax, your question was about Stax in particular and getting Stax to market. The story, and there's actually a podcast from December of 22 that I encourage people to listen to of me and Tony Fadell, where we talk about our friendship and how it ended up at Stax. And that podcast is also before we had the problems making Stax because of the Stax screen. So you get the origin story out of that podcast if you'd like, and if you watch the Road to Stax video, you get the whole story of how we did finally bring it to market. But this is a technology, it's organic TFT technology that's been around and technically possible for 25 or 30 years, came out of Cambridge University, but it's never been brought to market because it's very difficult from a yield perspective. And what that means is if you try to make 100 screens, how many of them are good? Right. So you're at a war against particles. And so you might make 100 screens and have 98 of them fail. Well, that's not viable from a business perspective. So, now you've got to like amortize the cost of the whole thing across those two screens, and the screens become very expensive. And that's exactly what happened to us is, it was incredible. The company that said they could do it couldn't do it.
Yeah, but if I may, all of this is in the past, in the sense that when you are late into delivering your products, you have two things that come to mind. First, you don't want to upset your customers. And two, you're worried that competition would actually, beat you and deliver something before you can actually ship your product. So that's, three, eventually your business forecast, you're banking on new product to make more revenue. On the first one, which is the most important one, which is customer satisfaction. The thing that you don't want when you're late shipping a product, being late shipping a product happens even to Apple today. So it's not unheard of. Happened to the best of us. Elon Musk and the Cybertruck was like super late. So that's not the problem. Customers usually anyone who didn't want to wait could be reimbursed. So it's not the problem of, we took the money from you and we will never give it back. So that was never the problem. It's just that, so you get impatient, rightfully so. And then the problem becomes like when you get the product is no good. Okay, that's the problem. That's the real problem. The problem is not to wait. The problem is not to be reimbursed. The real problem is now we shipped you the product and you don't like the product. So that's not what happened with Stax and Flex. Flex, nobody waited for it because it was available day one after the announcement. But people are delighted with the products. So that's number one. And so therefore, I would say, what's in the past, let's focus on now and the future, because what's important is when people have the product, and this was my biggest fear, to say, oh, I waited, I paid, and I waited all of this for that. That would have been, terrible, and that would have been very hard for a company like Ledger to recover from this. But the reviews on the product are the best that I hope they would be. that was the best that I hoped for, and they are the best. Like, people really love the product, really engage with the product. Number two, no one came up with a competitive product in the meantime. Most of the other companies have gone very quiet on the innovation front. So I would say that whether we release Stax 1 year ago or we release Stax now and Flex, etc., these are still by far the best products in the industry and will be the best products in the industry for the next 2 years, because I don't feel anyone has a competitive roadmap right now to put against us.
Also, no one has an operating system. So even if there's that to come back to that point, and I think that I also think that it's the interesting thing to me is having both Stax and Flex, and I'm going to say it because it's a question I get every time. The difference is Stax has the curved organic TFT e-ink screen, and it also has wireless charging.
That's your Lexus.
It's your Lexus. And Flex has a flat screen, silicon on glass, more of a traditional e-ink screen, and no wireless charging. A point from that, and maybe you call that one
that's your Toyota.
That's your Toyota. And so you have both. And I think what's interesting about this, and what one of the things that makes it a great business story is, I don't think that you could have or would have gone into this planning to have both devices. Yet, I'm so glad we do. Mm-hmm. I think if we only had if we only had Flex, which I love as a device, and I have friends who swear by Flex as the one, then I would think, okay, but from an industrial design perspective, it's not as innovative as I would like to be. And if we only had Stax, which is beautiful, and I thank you, Tony, for just an incredible industrial design. The notion that it should be credit card sized, and that it should which denotes value, and then it should bring you the future stack of cash with the ability to read the spine, which is unnecessary but cool. Right, and is what makes it really the luxury device, and puts it in a completely different class. And I have friends who swear that is the device, right? And I love that we have both. Pascal and I are both huge believers in consumer choice, which is what they give. And like Pascal said, I mean, there's really nothing close. I'm super lucky in my job that I don't have to sell Coke instead of Pepsi, right? There is, whether you look at it from an industrial design perspective, a usability perspective, a security perspective, a security architecture perspective, the ecosystem built around, there is no other. So, I think, like Pascal said, we've. Man, it was a rough road, and you can watch that Road to Ledger Stax video and see how hard it was, but resilience. Yeah. We did it.
It would be good if it wasn't hard.
One of my favorite parts of the podcast is when you say the difference between resilience and stubbornness is whether you end up succeeding at the end or not, and that's basically the case. You didn't bring one product to market. There are two products that were brought to market in 2024. So the question is, what's next for Ledger after these two products?
I want to say one thing about, because I agree with you on you mentioned, like, if it went into people's hands, because after 18 months, expectations are pretty high, right? It would have been reasonable for people to be disappointed. When we were in Singapore at Token, I met a guy. I was like, yeah, that was a long wait. And I was like, I know, man, I'm really sorry. And I'm sincere when I say that. Like, I'm really sorry. I tried my damnedest to get it to you sooner. And he said, it's totally worth it. And I was like, that is the best compliment that you can give me. And the number of times that we have heard that, and when you really get the product in people's hands, it jumps out at them. The other part of it, though, and to your point, it wouldn't be as rewarding if it wasn't hard. I've had now two people tell me, I had someone last week at Permissionless say, I was like, yeah, it's a long wait. And he was like, it's fine. You pre-order stuff. It comes when it comes. And I was like, okay. The other guy said to me, he said, I was never worried. I was like, oh, no. You should have been worried. Let me just tell you, there was a time when you really should have been worried. And so, but these are the best things in life. You work your ass off, like Mos Def said, the plan hard work, results, good living.
So bringing two hardwares to market, huge milestone. When you're talking about what's next for Ledger, you were mentioning earlier all of these like different use cases that aren't necessarily kind of related to the core crypto market. Ledger is much more of a cybersecurity company, if you think about it this way. Could you speak more to like kind of that vision and what would be next for a company like Ledger?
Yeah. So one thing, Stax was not just a product, but was a project. And behind the project, the product is the tree that hides the forest, because the real project was also to design a secure supply chain. So our supply chain was always secure, but to design like a secure supply chain at scale with partners at scale. And so that's why we were able to do Stax and Flex, because, you know, doing Flex was not yet another project similar to Stax. We use a lot of the pieces that we developed for Stax in terms of partners and design, et cetera, to make Flex in no time. So I think it's in a series where we explain this, but basically between the time that Ian, Tony, and I sit down and say, okay, we need a new product, and Stax comes to market, has been 3 years, I think. Between the moment we sit down, we say, okay, we need Flex, and it hits the market, it's been 9 months. So our ability to ship products, to build them and ship them fast has actually increased by a lot, thanks to the Stax project. So this is why we invested so much money, but it's not, people have to understand it's not just a product, it's also an ability to build hardware. And why that was important to do it when we did it is because we knew from the beginning, I mean, we designed like a mission vision in 2017 that talked about like critical digital assets. So for a long time, we know that it's not just cryptocurrency, it's everything that is a secret, that is online, and that you need to protect, because we all know that we have online secrets that are not just Bitcoin, and that those secrets need to be protected. You know, think about your identity, your health data, you know, a bunch of stuff, your logins, your 2FAs, etc.
Especially with AI now.
Yeah, especially with AI, but like in general, like, you know, and also with Bitcoin, there's something, there's a bit of an innovation, which is digital property. If you have digital property, and just like any other property, where do you store it? Like, where do you, if it's yours, it's yours. How do you keep it? Like, you know, physical stuff, you know how to keep. Digital stuff, you don't know how to keep. And so do you want necessarily to depend on a third party to, you know, to store your digital stuff? Maybe for some, but for others, maybe not. So there is definitely a world in the future that if you can hold some of your digital value, you will want to do it. And sometimes you'll use a third party for the rest of the stuff that you don't want to hold yourself. But being able to own something and to protect your own digital life, you know, seems to be, you know, very important. And we see that there is a rhythm of innovation that it's hard to sustain as a hardware manufacturer, because hardware takes time to build. Even if it's 9 months, it's still 9 months. So you don't iterate as fast on hardware as you do on software. And so therefore, when you build a device, you need to build a platform, and really that's what it is, where the platform is open enough with your operating system that is open, where people can code on top. So you don't need to invent the next usage of the product. The usage of the product will be invented by developers that will code on top of the product. So this is really where, you know, what we're trying to do, and, you know, with good results so far. Like, you know, we were talking to the team. Now we support on your ledger, we support 100% of the top 100 coins and tokens by market cap, which is a big achievement. It is an achievement because of the open nature of the operating system, because of the fact that teams can, you know, external teams can actually code on Ledger, and Ian is in charge of this for the company, among other things, but typically on this. And so we have a long roadmap of sort of opening Ledger and making sure that if you're a developer in the space, we will be your best bet for security and your best environment to develop your products and services around.
Yeah, and I think that's actually the proper way to frame it is, like, you know, if you think about everything that we've done over the last 3 years, getting these new devices to market, you know, and we've talked a lot about that. Like I said, you know, you can watch the kind of the whole story on YouTube, and I send it to friends just because they're like, "What have you been doing?" And I'm like, "Well, here, I've been doing this," right? So, but you're now starting to see, if you look at, you know, clear signing has been a huge thing for us. Look at how many.
Tell us more about clear signing, actually, because that's solving another like user experience friction.
Exactly. So I'll come back to that. everything that we've done around software, right, from this year. So, clear signing is a big part. How many new partners in Swap have we had? How many new partners in Buy? All of the coin support of the top and blockchain support of the top 100 tokens. More staking partners. It's just you're building and building and building around that. And now I think you'll see us just continue down the path of Stax and Flex. These products will of course have revisions, but on top of this platform, it's all of the things that you can do with them, right? So everything that you want to do with your Bitcoin, with your crypto, and with all of your secrets, as we were saying. So I think that's the short term. There's a long term vision, but like there's just the hard work of doing all that. Clear signing is one of them, because really unless you are seeing and verifying what it is you're signing on a secure screen, you can't be secure. Right. I mean, the challenge, why can't your phone do this? Well, because the screen on your phone can lie to you, right? There's layers of software in there on an insecure chip, which is vulnerable in a number of ways to, whether it's phishing or malware or, a much more sophisticated attack. Your phone can be owned, right? And so being able to do this on a secure chip is crucial. And that's what we do with Ledger. But even if you're doing it on a secure chip, it doesn't have a screen, or it doesn't have a secure screen, you're still vulnerable. You might be safe at rest, but you're not safe at the time of a transaction. And what we've seen in the world of kind of DeFi and beyond is that that people are blind signing as almost like a regular rule. Right. So, blind signing is something that people just do every day, which is kind of like going, okay, I've got all this value. I have all this technology. I have the world's most futuristic money. Now, YOLO, like let's sign this blank check. YOLO signing. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's really YOLO signing. And I stood on stage in Lisbon a couple of years ago and said that, blind signing is like unsafe sex. It's fun even until it's not. Right. And that day always comes. For sure. Right. So what we've done with clear signing is, a full effort. And there's a lot out there. It's hard. Yeah. We actually had a way to do this back in 21, but it meant writing a C application for your ledger, which, we did with a couple of dApps, but, asking every dApp on the planet to make a C application, and then update that C application anytime they update their smart contracts. I mean, that's not, that's not really viable. So what we've done now is we have, something that is complete. It's community wide. It's supported by other hardware wallets, other software wallets, all dApps. And it'll take us, really, it'll take us through the end of this year to get it all done on Ethereum. Yeah. It'll take us through next year to get it done on all of the other chains that it needs to be done on. It's hard work. It's work worth doing. And, because it keeps people safe at the end of the day. But truly the only way to be safe is if you are seeing what it is you are signing on a secure screen. Unless you are doing that, you can't be sure what it is you're signing.
So what we're saying is, unless you have a ledger, you're not secured. And actually, what was interesting to me with clear signing is like, who would follow? Because sometimes, you want to do things, but, if the industry doesn't want to follow, then you're on your own. Which is not the case with clear signing. Actually, everybody understands the necessity of this. We just announced today with Rabbi that they're in the clear signing initiative. Yeah, and Rabbi is one of the fastest growing wallet right now in the space. So it's superb that they're with us on this because they see the problem. And actually, this is new in the space. There used to be like a war between like sort of software wallet and hardware wallet and who is going to be first. But now it's the industry has matured a lot and people understand, and the different components in the industry understand how to partner in order to bring the best service and the best security, I guess, to their users. So that's very good to see. Yeah. And probably one of the last thing I would say on this podcast, because I need to move to something else, but this is what this building is also all about. Like coming back to Saint-Systemple and why we're opening and why we did it is, and we said a lot of things, but we didn't mention partners. It was inferred in what we said, but I wanted to insist on on partners, because that's really what this building is about. Like, when I meet like any company in Paris that is in crypto, like they are de facto welcome to come and work from here, have events here, etc. And we partner with almost everybody in crypto. Every coin foundation, every dApp, every smart contract, anyone who's in crypto needs to have an integration with Ledger in some shape or form, whether it's consumer or enterprise. And so this building is about partnering and welcoming people here so we can work together and build a future.
Yeah, and before we wrap it up, because I know you have to leave, but I'll end with this question. If you can both give us a short answer, it would be amazing so that we can end on it. Imagine we had a, time traveling machine. We're now in 2024. It's Ledger's 10-year anniversary. If you could move to 2034, where would Ledger be?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say 10 years, I would say 5.
Yeah.
Because I think the pace is accelerating. And so what happened in the past 10 years, the same and probably more will happen in the next 5. And so I wouldn't know 34, like that seems like too far away, but like 2030, I think, will be for a lot of people when they discover like sort of gravity, it's like, for a long time, people, when they look at Ledger, they're like, why Ledger? It's a bit of the story that we've been trying to tell, which is, it seems too complicated. Why do I need it, etc. To the point where I think in 2030, people will be like, okay, I need a ledger. It's not a why. It's like it's becoming like gravity. It's something that you have to have in order to be safe, in order to be secured. And if you don't have it, you're not secured. It's a bit like you take your car and you don't have those bags that explode and protect you in case of an accident. And if you think about the car industry, for a long time, people were driving without belts. They were driving without security. And I remember when all this happened with cars, like people were asking like, why do we need this? Like, I don't want this. I prefer to drive, careless. And then people understand bit by bit, because you had a lot of education going into, to the people to say, hey, look, it's fucking dangerous. Like, people are dying on the road. So you need to have your seatbelt on. You need to have like all these cool things that maybe cost a bit more, but at least you're secure and you're not dying at any crash. So I think it's quite similar with what's happening with the web right now, where people, and this is why we have like a great educational platform, largely thanks to you, Mo, but this is why you have education in the space. And I was on a panel one day with one guy recently who said, there's no need for education. People understand. And I'm like, no. People don't understand anything. And it's very normal, because it's a big shift from, you own nothing to suddenly you own something digital and online. And so you need protection. You need security. Only if you have security, you can be free. Only if you have security and privacy, you can be free. What we're doing is actually, we are a for-profit company for sure, but we're also doing it because we want people to have an alternative to just trusting third parties with their stuff. We want people to be free online the same way that they're free offline, free of your movement, free of owning what you want and delegating ownership to someone else if you want, but at least to have that option.
Free from compromise. What would your time machine tell you?
Well, I think, all of us are, we're here. Anyone in crypto today is a pioneer, right? And we're here in these early days, when it's still pre-mainstream. But I think what I've learned in my career is that these things take about 15 years. Bitcoin is 15 years old, and it's Bitcoin's year. I remember, the time between when I was playing around in my living room and trying to get content to a television from the internet to when my mom canceled her cable and had Roku as her primary way of getting her content was 15 years. So I think that, what I would do is I think you kind of, you can just track on that, right? I think you can say the ideas that we had in 2021 that led to a bull market, they were, of course, a lot of them were just sort of, were just sort of gold rush or greed, right? If you look at Carlotta Perez's great book on, it's called Technological Revolutions. That's exactly what it says, that whenever you have a new technology, you have a gold rush, you have a bubble, the bubble pops, and then you get 30 years of sustained growth, right? And you can go back through any industrial innovation and find the same pattern. So I think in that way, again, this year's, how many years did it take for HBO to do a documentary on Bitcoin? Oh, 15 years. Interesting. Random? I don't think so, right? So I think you could take a lot of those ideas from 2021 and say, when you fast forward into the future, if you go 15 years, those ideas will be taken for granted at that point, right?
How long is it going to take HBO to do a good documentary on Bitcoin?
I don't watch moving pictures, as you know, so I'm not a good judge.
Well,
You don't know who Satoshi is?
They got it completely wrong.
But
Awful.
1998, 99 was the internet bubble. And, those ideas were laughed at and lampooned on fuckedcompany.com. And, today, Instacart is a, many, many, many billions dollar business. And, can you imagine coming with Uber as an idea in 1999? So this is what you'll have. You'll have, all of these ideas will be taken for granted 15 years from now.
Guys, I'm
Gentlemen,
very sorry.
thank you for inaugurating the Ledger studio.
Merci,
It was a
Mo.
pleasure to have you.
Merci, Yann.
Thank you.
Merci.
Merci tout le monde.
Pascal.
Thank you, Mo.
Thanks again. Thank you for listening and watching to our Ledger podcast in our newly launched format. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow the show wherever you're listening to it. We'd really appreciate it because it'll help us help you make the best out of our content.